Hi, Shika, Manjeet.
Hello, how are you?
Hello, hi Denise,
Hi.
Chika.
Some people are still waiting, but for the others that are already connected, the joining is muted by default for all. But after the presentations, we will, give you the rights to unmute and show yourself in the screen. But in the meantime, just to avoid, disruptions for those who would be a little late, we everyone is muted by default upon joining. But I think we can. Hi, Moises. And yes, I was going to say that please, everyone, you are welcome to make any comments, introduce yourself, ask questions in the chat box. There's also a Q&A function, but either chat or Q&A function, it's all fine. We are not super strict about where you want to type any comment or question. But yes, so welcome to everybody who are connected. My name is Denise San Valentin. I work for the Climate and Clean Air Coalition Secretariat, hosted in UNEP. And this just to highlight people's faces to our speakers and presenters for the day. As mentioned, we had organized this cooling hub meeting to update everyone about the 2024-2025 priorities and work plan of the Climate and Clean Air Coalition, which was just presented and accepted by the CCAC board last month. And in addition, we have special guests from the Cool Coalition, both of them, Manjeet and Shika. Manjeet as the coordinator for the MENA project, and we'll talk about that later. And then Shika in terms of the updates on the Global Cooling Pledge, and how we as CCAC can collaborate and contribute for the delivery of the objectives and goals of the Kigali Amendment as well as the Global Cooling Pledge. So I'm not gonna speak any too much anymore, and I would hand the floor to Makoto Kato, who is the co-lead from Japan of the Cooling Hub. Makoto, would you like to share your slides yourself, or would you like us to
Yes,
operate?
yeah, I will share my slide too here. I think you're seeing my slide. Okay. So, thank you, Dennis. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, friends and colleagues. My name is Makoto Kato. I am the one of the co-lead working together with Miruza from Maldives. I am from Japan. Today, I am extremely pleased to share what I presented on behalf of the Cooling Hub at the CCAC board meeting, which the Japanese government hosted in Tokyo last month. And then, I actually presented like updates from the Cooling Hub, and also like since I am also working as the head of the Secretariat of the Initiative on Fluorocarbons Lifecycle Management, or IFL. So I am going to briefly touch upon what is kind of like a working model for collaborating initiatives for cooling hubs. So updates, as Denise started while talking, this group, we're very proud that our track record of bringing Kigali Amendment to success. Well, I think CCAC has a very unique position to push this Kigali Amendment from the negotiation time, but also like in the context of the bringing both this into entry into force. And as part of our earlier activity or action list, or tasks of the cooling hub, we actually put the Kigali Amendment early entry into force, and also bringing CCAC members, especially country members, to success acceding or ratification of the Kigali Amendment. And now all the CCS members have already ratified, so that we're now in the phase of the implementation. And then also, as mentioned earlier, we have growing momentum in the cooling sector. Starting with the CCSA Efficient Cooling Initiative, endorsed, supported by the G7 Biarritz Pledge, hosted by the French government, and also the Japanese government initiated for the IFL, Initiative on Fluorocarbons Lifecycle Management, in 2090. And G7 Summit last year in Sapporo, Japan, also endorsed the cooling. And then MOP 35 decision last year in Nairobi, where we have very important decisions on life cycle refrigerant management, environmental dumping, and energy efficiency. And then global cooling pledge in COP28. This was really a big momentum for us. So we are, and this year what we are focusing on life cycle refrigerant management, environmental dumping of cooling appliances, energy efficiency in cooling. So these are three major pillars that we're working on. And also as a cross-cutting element, so we're working, scaling up resources as across these three elements, because I think bringing resources is extremely important for, especially in developing countries context, so that we're making efforts to scale up resources as well. And this is our updated the list of CC's funded project on cooling. So that we are going to listen to MENA's program. I think this is really interesting. And also Dominican Republic, Maldives, Rwanda, Vietnam, and also a project of R744 HC 290. This is another interesting project, and also what's happening in Kenya. Well, this is also a very good example of African countries' initiative. When it comes to life cycle refrigerant management, well, we already know that in the context of Kigali, well, we have, as a compliance work, well, we have production and the consumption part targets. But as an encouraged work, meaning non-compliance or not covered compliance, well, the recovery, reclamation, recycling, destruction, well, these are actually responsibility by countries in their domestic efforts. But in many developing countries, well, they have challenges in managing ODS and HFCs, and in many cases, well, they're vented into the atmosphere. So that the very famous, our colleague from EIA, IGST and NRDC, well, we have a fantastic report of life cycle refrigerant management, speaking to 61 billion metric ton of ODS and HFCs by 2030, and 90 billion metric ton by 2050. So this is a big margin of additional mitigation benefits. So that this actually attracted a big attention by the CCAC board members in Tokyo. So we're sharing relevant knowledge. We're increasing political awareness. We're developing efforts for ODA banks and also HFC inventories through our capacity building efforts. And then also like environmental dumping. Well, this is a very serious and emerging issues, especially in developing countries like Africa. So thanks to our colleagues from Ghana and other African colleagues, we have decided to focus on this issue, especially like we need to work on the refrigerants elements and also like energy performance elements, so that we would like to see how we can globally stop for this obsolete productions dumping, and also like exporting, importing. So that activities will include both the virtual and in-person meeting for increased awareness of stakeholders, including for the available policies and tools, sharing and combating environmental dumping for cooling appliance. And also we will like to discuss how to integrate anti-dumping practices into Kigali implementation plans. And now, when it comes to energy efficiency in the cooling sector, well, we have a very famous report from the IEA, especially about cooling, future of cooling, and that we are actually doubling or tripling the stock of air conditioners in future. So if we have more efficient cooling appliances, we're able to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions in a very large scale, so that we're actually supporting some significant projects in Dominican Republic, Maldives, and MENA. So we're very much excited to see the progress of these efforts, and this is also contributing to the strengthening the Paris goal together with the Montreal Protocol activities. So, and then transformative projects. Well, so that's why I'm going to skip this slide, because this is going to be explained later. And then for the collaborative activities with the partner initiatives, because we welcome not only using resources within the cooling hub, but also by working with initiatives coming from partners. In this case, for initiative on fluorocarbons lifecycle management is one, but also we welcome initiatives. But this is how we can actually encourage scaling up resources and also scaling up our momentum. And then we have worked with different parties, and then CCAC has always been important organization, their members of the this IFL. And then recently, the Republic of Moldova joined. And then we work with mitigation and ambition and transparency in the Paris context, and also working on the inventories. In the forthcoming OEWG 46 meeting in Montreal, CCAC, together with IFL and GIZ, we are organizing seminar on refrigerants bank inventory. Well, this is extremely important to open up the door for resources coming from multilateral funds. And also like a legislation policy development, our colleagues in Vietnam, Cambodia, other countries, they have made extra steps to take an action to establish legislation, including life cycle refrigerants management. Then capacity development through guidelines development and training like this. So we have organized, and then I'm happy that the IFL is also organizing with this kind of training and also seminars. Well, in the end of August in this year in Bangkok. So if you're interested, well, please join us. Well, we'll welcome you and policymakers, practitioners to, of course, discuss, but also to touch this kind of like actual activities or to reduce leakage, and also like the recovery and destruction of refrigerants. And also, like some countries like Japan, other Paris parties, well, they are working on the how to utilize carbon market mechanisms. Of course, well, that is one topics well that attracted big attention. But I think in some cases, well, we see what is going to be the appropriate way of utilizing this carbon market mechanism in the context of NDCs, also in conformity with the Kigali amendments. So that is what was presented, and and then primary discussion conclusion was that this carbon credit revenue can be used to cover the cost of the life cycle refrigerant management, which is very costly, and which is not covered, so that the incentive is necessary for those who are collecting this used refrigerants. And also integrity is a key because, well, we see some unfortunate cases, well, in carbon markets. Of course, mostly there are, for example, like reforestation projects, or permanence issues. So that the refrigerant management is not necessarily directly linked with that, but still, well, there are concerns about integrity, so that we see well the working through the methodology development. Well, this is extremely important for us. So that was actually what was presented well in the CCC board meeting in Tokyo. And then maybe later, well, you can give questions and comments to what was discussed well, in the Tokyo's well, CCC board meeting. And then I'm happy that well, this was fully endorsed by the board members. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Makoto, for that very comprehensive presentation. And also just to add that the work plan and priorities were developed based on various consultations from January until May. So first with the CCAC Cooling Hub Leadership Group, and then we established the 3 work stream to focus on these 3 identified priorities on life cycle refrigerant management, environmental dumping, and energy efficiency and finance. And as well as the working group meeting in Nairobi, we did have an in-person thought leaders meeting as well as a cooling hub session. So it's actually a product of various consultations, and of course, everything this is, I mean, it's been accepted and approved by the board, but as you know, the CCAC is really run by the partners, and so you as partners are welcome to engage and continue discussion so that we can strengthen our interventions and make the most out of all the efforts without duplication, which is always the like a mantra in the CCAC, and also complementing the Kigali Amendment and now the Global Cooling Pledge. So now moving on to the next presenter. As you know, last year the CCAC approved funding for a transformative project in the cooling sector, and it's titled Development of National Cooling Action Plans in the Middle East and North Africa region. This is implemented mainly led by the Cool Coalition, as well as regional and local partners. And to give us some updates on this project, I'd like to call Manjeet Singh from the UNEP Cool Coalition to share.
Thank you, Denise. Let me just share. Okay. Are you able to see my screen? Okay. Thank you, Denise, and thank you, Cooling Hub partners, for providing this opportunity to share with you the update. And I would like to also thank Makoto and Miruza for successfully co-leading the Cooling Hub. I think I could see a great progress on the refrigerant life cycle management side. So this is basically, as Denise was mentioning, that we have been granted with a project to develop national cooling action plans in MENA region for their 17 countries. Uh, I'm from Cool Coalition, and this project is being implemented through the Cool Coalition partners. As you know, Cool Coalition is an official outcome of UN Climate Action Summit created to facilitate knowledge exchange, advocacy, and joint actions that can support countries and industries to tackle growing cooling demand in an efficient and climate-friendly manner. Cool Coalition was also recognized as transformative initiative at the UNSC Summit in 2019. uh, Coalition also mainly coalition promotes this comprehensive approach on cooling, which is to reduce the mechanical demand for cooling, shift the cooling towards low emission and low carbon cooling practices, and then improve the cooling efficiency and protect the vulnerable population, providing the thermal comfort. Uh, National Cooling Action Plan is one of the critical area of Cool Coalition's work, and this was also called by this UN Secretary General in 2019 UNSC summit, and he had called upon all the countries to develop their national cooling action plans. The idea behind cooling action plan to these tentatively these six I would say six type of roles it can play. Basically, it is since it's a cross-sectoral issue, so National Cooling Action Plan provide like it creates synergy and provide a strong political and meaningful political bill and meaningful nationwide directive for all the ministries and other agencies to coordinate and collaborate on cooling sector. Then certainly it provides an market signals for investment, because it could it, this is like the investment agencies and the financial institutions can take out the policy certainty aspect and also develop some kind of interventions which can be leveraged to build the investment portfolios on cooling. Then certainly, as I mentioned, it creates an synergistic approach, leveraging the interlinkages with the other government agendas, like on the development side, then on the social development side of the providing thermal comfort, protect people from the extreme heat, and then aligning with the energy efficiency policies in the cooling sector. Then one of the important aspect of National Cooling Action Plan is it can certainly provide a baselining on the cooling sector, which is like what type of energy demand is there in different sectors of cooling, how much is the refrigerant consumption. Certainly, it is aligned with the Kigali Amendment, uh, and then it can develop an actionable targets for country to reduce the cooling emissions in a more sustainable and holistic way, while not hampering the access to cooling aspect. Uh, then it is of course the one of the major idea behind it to integrate refrigerant and energy efficiency debate, as like bringing together Paris Agreement targets, Kigali Amendment, and SDGs together and develop a comprehensive plan. And then certainly it creates an evidence base for increasing and enhancing climate ambition, and which has been doing like several countries to consider NCAP as a tool to assess how they can enhance their NDCs in different cycles of NDCs. Uh, there was one of the gap what was identified by the coalition partners were that many countries were developing NCAPs, but there was wide variation in the scope and lack of an uh, globally accepted methodology for to develop the national cooling action plan, as is the case in some of the climate and Kigali Amendment or Montreal Protocol processes, where we have a standard template how a country should develop their documents. But this wasn't available for the national cooling action plan. So scope used to vary with like some countries with only air conditioner policies, they named as cooling action plan. So Cool Coalition with its partners in 2019, 2020, 2020, they developed global NCAP methodology, and the partners were like GIZ, World Bank, UNDP, CLASP. SCAP was one of the leading partner, UNSCAP. And the methodology provides a comprehensive approach and guiding framework for a country how to develop national cooling action plan, and it has a 3 stages. One is contextual assessment of and contextual assessment planning for the country context to map out the importance of the different sectors, what could be the potential segment which we should be addressing through the pooling action plan, what are the different key stakeholders, and the governance structure to develop the NCAP. The second step is to have a data collection framework and then process to and develop the cooling demand modeling assessment and the sector specific future scenarios. The third step is then we have to develop synthesis and develop the NCAP, which is through the integration of all the sectoral assessment and develop the set of strategic recommendations for NCAP. As Makoto and Denise was saying that the CCAC has supported this project for MENA region, and mainly what was the idea behind that was the need for that was, as we all know, so many of the MENA countries are comes under high ambient temperature, and they are struggling with the huge cooling demand and which is rapidly growing. uh, Estimates are saying that the global warming and the rate of temperature increase is higher in the region, and 50% of its population would be impacted by extreme heat by end of the century. And the energy demand is projected to increase by 50% until 2040. In that context, UNEP with its partner RICRI, mainly the lead implementing partner, but certainly we are also collaborating with other partners to we have initiated this project to accelerate the shift towards climate-friendly cooling and HFCs phase down in the region by scaling up the national policies and building capacity of the stakeholders to develop NCAPs and also their capacity to implement and do some kind of initial financing assessment as well. The project has 3 key components. One is what was identified after our global methodology was that the NCAPs are also having a regional contextualization based on the cooling demand sectors. So one of the idea is to develop a regional NCAP methodology, adapting and contextualizing for the MENA region, and then support 2 countries in the region to develop their national cooling action plans. And then third component is to have a series of stakeholder consultation and capacity building uh, training workshops in the region for the by doing the twinning of the different government agencies, mainly the energy, environment, and Montreal Protocol agencies, MOUs. As I was mentioned, the project is being implemented by UNEP and RICRI, but I have included CoolUp here because they have a strong portfolio and we are collaborating with them uh, in our regional work as well as at the country level work wherever they are working to develop collaboratively national cooling action plan. The project has 3 components as I mentioned, and the detailed activities in that are regional methodology to develop NCAPs, which is being available to all the stakeholders. Uh, One of the idea is to understand the need of the 17 countries and then define the criteria, scope, and the structure of the methodology and how can we focus more, which is relevant for the MENA region. Uh, then, uh, then we have to develop the training modules for the training module and then do the training workshops for these countries. The second, of course, is support 2 countries. One, we are supporting Egypt with CoolUp in development of national cooling action plan. The other one we are in process of identify. Uh, and what we the process of doing the National Cooling Action Plan support is we have to first establish the partnership with countries and then institutionalize the process for the development. And then we are initiating the process of data collection, and then we will go for the modeling assessment. Uh, so in the sectoral demand assessment, we we are looking at various sectors, which includes passive cooling, um, uh, active cooling from the air conditioning side, and then on the refrigeration side, it includes the domestic, the commercial, and cold chain sectors. And then refrigerant is being also tackled separately, but certainly it will be brought in from the Kigali KIPs of these countries, aligned with their KIPs. The third one component is capacity building. Uh, our idea is to certainly we can't support all 17 countries to develop NCAPs. So our idea is to support these two countries as a lighthouse projects and then pilot the methodology and then also parallelly train the stakeholders of other countries so that they can initiate their national cooling action plan developments, and that we are going to do through this training module, provide these trainings at maybe at different platforms at global and national level, but also we'll have dedicated regional training workshops. Uh, Last slide is, so as I mentioned, one of the country is Egypt, which we have recently launched. Like we supported their national agency, Egypt Environmental Affairs Agency, Ministry of Environment, to launch the kickoff meeting for NCAP development on 21st of May in Cairo. From the regional and the national partners who would be providing leading technical support are IDG and RICRI. Cool Coalition and Cooler Program are the overall like framework initiatives under which the support will be provided. Course was is being supported by CCAC. And the NCAPs will be implementing this comprehensive pool coalition methodology. And as I mentioned, the scope of the NCAPs right now, what we are envisioning is space cooling, which is active and passive cooling strategies, refrigeration side, the domestic, commercial, and cold chains, transport cooling, and refrigerants. So I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Thank
Over
you,
to you,
Manjit.
Denise.
Thank you, Manjit, for the presentation. It's good also to have an overview of, the global NCAP status, and I think there's a lot of interest as well. But let's leave. There's a question in the chat about lack, but let's leave that discussion after Shika's presentation. I think it will be made richer by her updates on the plans of implementing the Global Cooling Pledge, as well as opportunities for collaboration between the CCAC partners and the rest of those that are working to achieve the Global Cooling Pledge. Over to you, Shika.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Denise, and to all CCAC colleagues. And I consider us to be CCAC colleagues as well, so not to Manjeet on that. Just to get us started, I think when we think about the Global Cooling Pledge, we're also in the process of streamlining our work plan going forward. The final approvals should come within this month, and within this week, actually, we'll be getting the final round of feedback on the global implementation strategy, and that's what I will also be speaking with you about. But before I get started on the implementation strategy, I just want to draw everyone's attention to the 68% emissions reduction target that the Global Cooling Pledge has actually incorporated. And this is based on the Global Cooling Watch report, which was also launched on the same day as the pledge last year at COP28. And what this report assesses is that the majority of the emissions that are not directly related to the grid decarbonization rates will actually be reduced through actions in three very cohesive areas. One of these is faster refrigerant phase down. The second one is an increase in energy efficiency. And the third one is on passive cooling measures. And when we talk about a faster refrigerant phase down and energy efficiency, if we look to the commitments that have been put into the global cooling pledge, actually they are very closely related to your strategic objectives that were presented by Makoto, I'm sorry, earlier this afternoon. Because they focus a lot on anti-dumping, they focus on LRM, and they do prompt pushing for a faster refrigerant phase down as well. So we have about 71 countries now that have signed on to the pledge, and our effort as the Cool Coalition, but also as the acting secretariat for the Global Cooling Pledge, we've divided it up into 5 work packages. The first is, of course, to look to data, because the more data we have, the more we're actually able to assess whether we're making progress and where are the gaps, where we need concerted effort to make that progress take a more positive turn. And in order to drive that, the first thing that's going to be happening is an annual policy survey, which will be, we're going to try to not make an incredibly burdensome reporting framework for the signatories. But the intent is very much to identify indicators, to identify data, and to identify proxies where data doesn't actually exist, to be able to assess where we are today and annually going forward. This year, we also intend to do a needs assessment for all of the pledge signatory countries, because we really want to understand what their political, economic development priorities are when it comes to cooling. And in some ways, it responds to the question that has been raised of NCAPs in the LAC region, for instance, because what we're trying to understand through this needs assessment is that in what region are certain areas of action going to be more prioritized or not, and then how do we try and cater to that, not as the secretariat necessarily, but through the coalition partners and membership, similar to how the CCAC membership can also participate. A third thing is going to be developing a dashboard. So we want to create a publicly available database which shows the level of policy progress, which shows the level of implementation progress across the signatory countries. And a lot of this is going to then feed into the biennial global cooling watch reports that we will expand from the group of the signatories to the larger country grouping, which are recognized UN member states. And with that, we hope to also be able to shine the light on particular sectoral priority areas that we hope will emerge from the needs assessment. The second big work program that we have is going to be on capacity building and direct technical assistance for pledge implementation. So one of the first things that we're working on is a policy toolkit where we're trying to develop guidance for all governments who are interested in making moves, whether it's MEPs, whether it's building codes, whether it's Kigali, how to get to a faster refrigerant phase down, what does LRM actually look like in practice, so on and so forth. And we want to develop this policy toolkit with guidance that is already available. So for all of the partners on the call, we would really like to be able to link the guidance, the data, and the toolkits and the methods that you all have developed, and take those and sort of put it in this one-stop knowledge portal for all governments and other stakeholders who would be interested in starting to implement these programs. We're going to in addition to that, sort of compound that through actual technical assistance and trainings, again, with our membership, and also try and engage with a twinning effort that we're also seeing, within the framework of the Montreal Protocol. There have already been in the presentations that were made about CCAC priorities, how the ozone world and the climate world, need to come together in terms of reporting framework, so on and so forth. So to really try and bring together all of the resources and the trainings that all of the partners are doing and kind of amplify that with the right stakeholders. And of course, wherever these gaps exist in knowledge and guidance products, we would want to develop those further. I'll talk a little bit more about some of these going forward. Um, But what I really would like to draw your attention to is similar to CCAC, everything that happens within the Coal Coalition is through the leadership of its membership. And the way that we intend to make all of this pledge implementation strategy a reality is through through thematic working groups, which are all led by our partners and our members. And I want to draw your attention to some of the working groups that we've listed out here, because I think all of these are extremely integral to the work of the CCAC. And in fact, through the course of Makoto's presentation, I realized that there's actually a few more, where CCAC would be a very natural lead partner. But I think like when it comes to cooling in NDCs, how do you support countries in being able to include their cooling actions from a point of view of climate mitigation and climate adaptation? And more importantly, like develop a reporting framework so that they themselves can measure it and report back on it. We're developing a data for cooling working group where we want to try and get together all of the relevant actors who are actually doing the data mining for cooling to then be able to support governments at a national level to understand their own capacity gaps there, but also refine that data further. Our colleagues at UNEP U4E are leading a minimum energy performance standards group, which has actually just been formally announced this month. Of course, Manjeet has already spoken about all of the amazing work that the National Cooling Action Plans group is doing. And then there is a very strong request that has come from our partners in Africa to develop a working group that's dedicated to the dumping of inefficient appliances. And this is an effort that is completely being led by CCAC and partners. And then the other aspect, of course, is on passive cooling, nature, urban heat adaptation. And then we have, of course, engagements with the private sector and, a very strong effort to also try and communicate and raise awareness so that the political momentum of things like the Global Cooling Pledge, which has also built on 5 years of work, as Makoto also explained, to keep that going as a community. So far, we don't have a dedicated working group on LRM, and that's why this is highlighted especially. But this is an area of work that I think we, as the Coal Coalition, are going to look for a lot of guidance and leadership to the CCAC on, because it is a core commitment that has been included in the pledge, actually very much on the request of the success that Japan has seen in its program that Makoto also spoke about. And this is an area that still needs to be formally sort of developed into a working group, but I do believe would be a very natural space for partnership, between the two secretariats and the larger membership that we bring. Um, the third aspect, the third work program is going to look at cooling action and investment plans with an eye to NDC enhancement. Because I think one of the things that we all have recognized on this call, and I understand I'm preaching a little bit to the choir, is that not only do we need ambitious policies when it comes to energy efficiency, to the refrigerant phase down, to on building and passive cooling measures, but we also need overarching policies. So we need everything from NCAPs and NDCs to actually take into account what these ambitions and what these policies could look like, but more importantly, also have these policies and programs speak to each other so that the benefits can be compounded going forward. And so, as part of this program, of course, Manjeet has already spoken to you about the work that we're doing on NCAPs. We also want to bring in guidance on how can you start including cooling within your NDCs. And for the countries where these targets already exist, we also want to partner with financing institutions to be able to develop investment roadmaps and investment assessments to support the implementation. Because while the targets are really important and symptomatic of political motivation and commitments, you also need as much money to actually back it up and make sure that it happens. And I'd really like to hear more about the work that you also mentioned on carbon markets and how that can bring all of these different pieces together. Um, The fourth program is going to be looking at passive cooling. And so we have recently set up a working group with, again, UNEP colleagues who host the Global ABC Secretariat, where we are looking to develop guidance. But also quite strong indicators to be able to understand the level of ambition and the level of awareness and implementation in this space. And of course, the nature for cooling challenge that exists, which I think a lot of you would be familiar with as a wide ranging like UNEP initiative, where we really want to be able to focus on the adaptation and the resilience side and sort of nature proofing for cooling against heat stress. Um, and then finally, we'll have a work program dedicated to advocacy and awareness, which goes back to the point I was making earlier about carrying the momentum forward, trying to ensure that cooling comes more and more outside of the blind spot that it still is. It still remains a very niche area of work. And I think the fact that this is a committed community to cooling. It's very important that we all work together in making sure that at all high level segments, at a regional level, at a national level, we try and amplify the mobilization of such commitments and such implementation going forward. I'd be happy to stop here because I'm hoping that we have a lot of questions and discussion around this, and I can pull back any of the slides as people would like. Thanks, Denise. Over to you.
Thank you, Shika, for the very rich presentation as well. And we have like 15 minutes left before the end. So let's try and have like 10 minutes for questions and answers. So I invite everyone. I think at this point, my colleague Marco is giving you now access to your microphones and videos if you'd like to share your turn on your camera. But yeah, please feel free to just raise your hand and if you have any questions or comments on everything that was presented today. And at the same time, I know that Moises from Dominican Republic also had some chats in terms like we can start with his question. I don't know, Moises, would you like to speak? Take the floor. I don't know if Manjeet and maybe it's also for
Sorry,
Shika. Go ahead.
excuse me. Sorry that I have in another phone. Uh, can you repeat the question? Sorry, because
No, I was
I
on your question, if you'd like to expand on your question about the
yes,
LAC
okay,
region in Spanish.
okay. Hi everyone first, and uh, I see that you are interested in the MENA region. It's easy to understand because the temperature is Africa, the temperature is high. But actually, in all over the world, the temperature is high. In particularly, if you remember the Dominican Republic and also all the Caribbean and Central America, we are in the equator, and the temperature is increasing. Actually, is every day more difficult, and will be this just a suggestion is in the LAC region we can do something like this. And also I see that you have the NCAP, the NCAP in French and in Arabic, but should be interesting to have in Spanish and to try to make something similar that you are going to do in Thailand in August, to do something similar in this region, because this is important too. I don't know if the Japanese government can support this or another one. Thank you. I'm sorry.
No need to say sorry. Thank you, Moises. Does anyone from the group want to respond to him? Manjeet, it was mainly
Uh,
directed to you.
yes, I think I can Thanks so much for the question, and I think we also understand the urgency and the need is being also shown by the other countries. Uh, so certainly the translation in French and Arabic contextualizing for the region is came recently, and that we have started for the MENA region, and we are also actively working towards mobilizing support for having something for LAC region as well. Some of the important countries who have joined Global Cooling Pledge are from MENA region, including Brazil, and like some of these big countries. We are looking, certainly our idea is if we get the support and like if the appropriate partnerships are being established, we will be having a regionally contextualized methodology in uh, Portuguese and Spanish, which are the main languages of this region. Thank you.
Thank you, Manjit.
Thank you. And
Just
if I'm go ahead, I was
I'm
trying
sorry.
to.
Sorry.
No, go
So
ahead,
for
Mohan.
Japan side, like, thank you very much, Mrs. Fo. It's a very nice comments. Well, if you're interested, well, like, I hope we are going to have an opportunity to meet each other. And then well, we can start like how we're going to initiate well this kind of work. I think for our support program, we have specific procedures, so it might take a bit of time, but I think what this is something we'll if you're interested, though, I'm happy to engage for in discussion for preparation. Thank you.
Very good for the thanks for the
Thank you, Kato.
hopeful. Yes. We have two hands. Maybe we take them first before responding. First is with Len Galileo Goma. Please introduce yourself, and then Anya.
Thank you very much, Denise, for recognizing me. And I want to say thanks to all of the presenters today. The presentation was quite informative. But just to Manji, we want to say thanks to you guys for developing that methodology on the NCAP. And we are urging the coalition at least to maybe publish or share the two countries that the NCAP has already been developed when it's adopted by their authorities. Maybe it could be shared with partners so that it can be used as a good guide for other countries who want to develop their income as well. And to Shika, I don't know, is there a procedure if a member still want to be a partner of the Global Coding Pledge? I don't know if you can expand on that a little bit. Thank you.
Should I start? Okay, so I think for first point, I think there is no doubt. We are starting the starting to draft the regional methodology for MENA, and certainly we would love to share the document, and we would, I think we can share immediately the global guidance document for NCAP, which can be also a good guidance and flexible enough for a country to develop their NCAP, and we can have a dedicated meeting where we can also support national government to at least in understanding and the initial starting. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for the inquiry. It's actually fairly straightforward. So what I will do is I will get your email address right after this call and share with you the basic format. It's just an endorsement letter that needs to be signed off by the government. And it goes directly to the UAE COP28 presidency with the Cool Coalition Secretariat and copy. And we'd be very happy to have you on board.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Denise, it's over to you.
Thank you. And a little bit quickly from Anya.
Yes, hello. Thank you, Denise. I'm Anja Schwedje, and I'm working for the German Environment Agency, and I'm also the co-lead of CCAC's Waste Hub. And in that function, we are actually always quite interested to interact with the cooling hub. And with some pleasure, I saw that the cooling initiative, Shika, as you presented, you have a nature in cooling working group, and I would be, and also one for heat adaptation in urban environments, and I would be happy if you could invite me to both of them. Denise has my contacts, and I also was very interested in seeing the MENA region project coming up. And I wanted to mention that as a part also of our CCAC contributions, we have a advisory assistance project with Egypt and Jordan on organic waste. And one of the strategies where we want to link into is using compost for natural cooling, especially shaping the environment in those countries to bring temperatures down. And I would be happy also that, first of all, you include me in that, and then I would pass you on as a link to our national coordination group of that project, because we would be happy to exchange with you on that if you are interested. Okay, thank you. This is the two reach outs, and thank you for the very interesting session, which gave me a good insight in what you do in the cooling hub.
Thank you, Anya. And in the interest of time, it's yes, and it's very nice whenever new connections are made after a meeting. So I'll share with Shika and Manjit your contacts.
Thank you.
And so for the others, if you still have questions, please feel free to put it in the chat, and then we can get back to you in writing, or just send us an email. And at this point, I'd like to call on for closing and some remarks. The other co-lead of the CCAC Cooling Hub, Miruza Mohammed from the Maldives, who I believe is also going to be the co-chair of the upcoming open-ended working group meeting in Montreal. Miruza?
Hi, thank you, Denise. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we
Okay.
can hear you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining the Cooling Hub meeting. I believe it was a very fruitful discussion, but as always, we don't have enough time. So I will also be very brief. And I would like to thank, first of all, to Makoto for your very comprehensive presentation on the CCAC cooling priorities and work plan, and also to Mr. Manjit for highlighting the very important components of MENA region and how to develop the uh, methodologies for the national cooling plan. And of course to Ms. Sheha for a very comprehensive update. Looks very interesting as well, with lots of components that we could actually work together, I believe. So thank you all very much. And yes, from these presentations, we all know that a lot has been done and we are doing a lot of activities are ongoing, and but still there are a lot to be done as well. So and I'm sure that a lot of many of you here are also very busy preparing for the OEWG, which will be held in Montreal from 8 to 12. And just in line with the CCAC cooling her priorities, I just want to note some of the important agenda items which is linked to us. So yeah, if you have gone through the OWG agenda, you would note that the on the agenda item 4, we have the life cycle refrigerant management agenda on, and this is very relevant to us as well. So, and if you may recall that during the 35th MOP meeting of the parties, there was a request for the Technology and Economic Assessment Panel to prepare a report on available technologies, the obstacles and challenges associated with effective refrigerant management, and also the costs and climate and ozone benefit associated with such management, including policies and incentive schemes for ensuring effective management. This report is now available in the Ozone Secretariat website, and there is also an annex which gives the key findings of the issues as well. And I believe this will also be presented during the OEWG by the members of the task force. So we would have summary of the findings as well. So some of the key findings include like refrigerant recovery policy framework and capacity building, and there are a lot more as well. So I think it would be really good for us to have a read and then be prepared, so that we can engage positively to move towards a direction that would benefit us all in the with regards to the cooling hub as well, specifically. And just since this is also related to LRM, just wanted to also note that the um, during the 35th meeting, there was also the EXCOM was requested uh, to consider providing a window of funding for countries who had completed their national inventories and plans for managing refrigerants. So, and to support the development of the plans. But this, the EXCOM is expected to report on the progress of this during the next MOP, so which would be held in Bangkok. And as many of you already know that during the 36th MOP, there will also be a workshop organized by the Ozone Secretariat to share information and discuss challenges and opportunities in life cycle refrigerant management. So just wanted to share this important agenda item, and there would be a lot more relevant to the CCAC cooling hub priorities, like the energy efficiency, which has been going on for a few years, and also discussion on strengthening Montreal Protocol institutions, including combating illegal trade. And so it would be good to have close attention so that it would help the CCAC cooling hub and can provide the support that will help implement the Kigali amendment. I would also like to highlight the CCAC event at the OAWG, which will be on July 7th, Fluorocarbon Spank Inventories Workshop, which is co-sponsored by the Ministry of Environment Japan and IFL Secretariat and the Climate Ozone Protection Alliance, and in with collaboration with UNIDO, Carbon Containment Lab, and NRDC. So as of now, 32 participants from Article 5 countries will participate in the whole event, and since there will be limited spaces, the CCAC also plan to record the meeting and to share with those who will not be able to attend. And I think Dennis already has posted, and we just please make note of the side events that CCAC will be organizing, and it would be really good if all can participate these side events. Thank you once again, everyone. Over to you, Dennis.
Thank you, Miruza, and thanks again to Makoto, Manji, Chika, and to all of those that are connected, to my colleague Marco as well. And for those that are going to Montreal, see you very soon. And otherwise, let's keep in touch by email. Thank you very much. Have a nice rest of the day for all of you. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you very much.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.